Thank you for tuning into Devotions here today. And we are looking all week long of the cost of commitment, being committed to Jesus Christ. God is looking for servants, men and women of God, who are fiercely devoted to Him. Now, I'd like you to look with me in Luke 14, verse 26. It says, now, if anyone... We looked at this yesterday, so you're not on the wrong devotion. It says, if anyone comes to me and doesn't hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Now, I want you to notice here, being a disciple is not being a Christian. Being a disciple is being someone who is just fiercely committed to God. And listen, that should be the goal of every person. So yesterday we looked at that your love for other people should look like you hate them in comparison to Jesus. But I also want you to notice, he said, and yes, even your own life, that you shouldn't put your life before God. Hate your own life. It looks like you hate yourself because you love God so much. Did you ever hear somebody say, well, you know, the reason why I'm going to do this horrible, awful, sinful thing is because I just love myself. Well, they couldn't have made a truer statement, okay? It's not a good idea. But if you love God, you wouldn't be doing a dumb thing that you're doing there, and that's selfish. You just don't want to do it. So God doesn't want us being self-centered and selfish. So if you want to be truly committed, then it's going to attack your personal desires. Or it reminds me of the little boy that was at a birthday party, and he said, I want the biggest piece of cake. And his mother pulled him aside, and she said, honey, she goes, you don't ever ask for the biggest piece of cake. They looked at his mom with tears in his eyes, and he said, but then how do I get the biggest piece of cake? Well, I got news for you. Maybe you ought not to be wanting the biggest, or maybe you ought not want to have something more than what other people have and be thinking of yourself, but we should be thinking of others. Now look with me in Colossians 3, verse 2. He says, now set your mind on things that are above and not on the things that are on the earth. So the Bible says we ought to be heavenly minded. Now that doesn't mean you should be so heavenly minded that you're not any earthly good. We should be doing God's work here and showing God's love here, but we shouldn't have our desires on this earth, but we should have it in heaven. You know, one of the biggest things that the devil does, he keeps you too busy. If the devil can't make you bad, then he'll make you busy. Isn't that true? Listen, when the phone rings, you don't have to answer it. When somebody throws a ball to you, you don't have to catch it, you can let it go. When people ask you to all these functions, you don't have to go. You got to put what's first. Stop pleasing other people. And again, please Christ first, even before yourself. Now, look with me in 2 Corinthians verse 5, verse 15. He says, in Jesus, he died for all so that they who live might no longer live for themselves. Do you see that? Don't live for you, but live for him who died and rose again on their behalf. Wow. Notice all these verses. They say a lot about not loving yourself and putting Christ before everything else you want. You want to please Jesus before you please yourself. I like a little boy went to a doctor, and so the doctor, was checking his heart rate, and he was listening to his chest, and he tapped him on the chest, and he said, little boy, he said, is Big Bird in there? The little boy said, no. He said, is Barney in there? And he said, no. And the little boy says, Jesus is in there. Barney is on my underwear. I know, it's not funny. Oh, well, whatever. Hey, listen, for some of you, this is very early. You want Jesus Christ to be in your heart. You want everybody to see him. You want him to be number one before anything else in your life, to be a committed to him. Listen, put God first, and the rest then we'll be blessed of everything you're trying to do. Remind yourself every single day, and that's what we're doing now, what matters most.